うわ、信じられへんわ。ほんまにスタジオに来てもうた。
クレイジーだよね。歌えないって言ってもいいかな。
あかんあかん。おもろいってやってみようや。
ところでさ、この人たち誰だろ
なんかイージーチューンとかなんとか言うらしいで。サウンドはほんまバカっぽいで。
う。待って待って。でもさ、これって家に帰ってても誰も信じないよね。
せや、写真撮ろうや。撮ろう撮ろう。
トロトロ。
ほんなら、やってみようか。Here we go!
だ。
Hello, R users. My name is John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology, 11-year user of R for normal, boring statistical applications, and for now the majority of that 11 years, now the vast majority, I've also been using R to author things, to actually communicate the results of analyses. So, eschewing, if that's a word that Shakespeare, I guess, maybe used. An old-timey word, but eschewing word processors, so standalone pieces of software that are designed for specific purposes. We can do that using R. And so every week I hang out here, and some of my friends stop by. Uh, Spoiler alert: they're not going to stop by this week because I forgot to send the link. So um, the holiday kind of threw me off. These 3-day weekends, I don't know what it is about them, but it throws me. It's always throwing me for a loop. So anyway, I'm a little off my game, so I forgot to put out the link. Sorry, because I know that these sessions are a lot more interesting when I have some people that show up. But tonight it's probably just going to be me. Now you can see me tonight. Last week I was having camera issues. StreamYard never got back to me, but good old AI helped us out a little bit. Look at this. What's happening? I got some overplotting. I'm gonna have to correct that. I don't remember seeing that. I don't remember seeing that when I tested these slides out. Interesting. So what I'm looking at here is on the second slide, the image from last week is kind of plotting over my title, and I don't like that. I kind of have I have a strong attention to detail for these types of things. So it bothers me that that's how. You know what? We're doing a session on using R to author, so let's go into my slide specification here and let's see what happened. Now I think what I can do is I can probably just bump that down a little bit. So what you're looking at there in the absolute is there's a specification of how far uh, how far we're asking the image to be from the top of the screen. That did a little bit, but it didn't do quite what I wanted it to. So we'll we'll just bump it down quite a bit here. Now these numbers, I believe the numbers without a unit specified, I believe that they refer to pixels. I'm not 100% sure on that. There's different ways to make these specifications. There we go. That's better. Now my arrow is off a little bit, but I'll fix that later. The arrow doesn't bother me as much. Sheesh. Okay. So every week we hang out and we make ourselves available if there's other people that are interested in executing their entire project from within a software platform that many people are taught is used for a single purpose, which is doing data analyses. Um, R is so wonderful. You can do so many things in R. You can also write in R. And so we just want to kind of spread the joy of that philosophy. It's consistent with this idea of reproducible research. And I mentioned I'm an industrial psychologist, or I identify as an industrial psychologist. Technically, the field is called industrial and organizational psychology. But one of the things we study is work. And so in the back of my mind, I've thought about whether or not this way of structuring work for data scientists or for people that use a lot of analyses, whether that's like amenable to a research project. I can't. I'm usually pretty crafty at coming up with creative research designs, but one, I'm out of practice a little bit, but two, I'm not sure that it's not clear to me how we might structure something to conduct a research study to determine whether these sorts of workflows where we're using a single platform to execute entire projects have the benefits that I know they do. So maybe it's just not necessary. It's one of those maybe questions that doesn't need investigation because the answer is obvious. So anyway, it minimizes errors. The main thing that using R to craft entire projects does is it provides a record of what you've done, but then it also minimizes error. So every week we're here, and the main reason we're here is we want to help other people. And so if there's anyone that is interested in doing this or doing projects and you want to share them or maybe just bounce some ideas off of people, that's what we're here for. We use the analogy or the metaphor of an academic an academic office hour. So we call these sessions open office hours, and the idea is doors open if you have anything that's on your mind regarding R and Quarto and R Markdown and using these platforms to author. Come on in and ask questions, kind of a judgment-free zone here. So in the absence of having a lot of back and forth with people, what we've been doing and having a lot of fun with is we've been kind of playing on the boundaries of these authoring capabilities and learning new capabilities. Sorry, I had a delicious Greek salad for dinner. That's this time of the year, probably 5 nights a week. I eat nothing but Greek salads if I'm growing cucumbers. I love growing cucumbers. I don't have space for it, but I have space, garden space in other people's gardens. And so I'll go grab cucumbers and tomatoes and make Greek salad. I love Greek salads, but I got a cucumber or something in my tooth and it's driving me nuts. I'll try not to smile because there's nothing more embarrassing than something green in your teeth, right? Luckily, I'm small enough here on the screen where you probably can't see it. anyway. So in the absence of people coming by and asking questions, what we do is we play with capabilities. And this week's capability, I regretted um, deciding on this week's capability the moment that I published this week's slides. I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't have done that. And we'll get into why I probably shouldn't have done that in a bit here. But we're gonna take a look at a Quarto extension that permits the specification of diagrams. In this particular form of diagram, they're called D2 diagrams. And so I think I have a link here to not a R page or Quarto page. This is fully divorced again. But it's one of these kind of, it looks, I don't know a ton about it. It looks like it's one of these open source kind of playgrounds to build capability for a specific purpose. Now a few months ago, maybe even a year ago, we took a look at Quarto's native diagramming capabilities through two different platforms. One's called Mermaid and the other's called DataViz, or Graphviz. I think it's called Graphviz. And we had fun with that. This one's different. It's not natively supported by Quarto. And that's the main reason I had a bit of a regret kind of cascade across me. This one is going to require some extra software installation. So my expectation is people watching this maybe aren't going to do that. And I'll try to contrast, if we have time, some of the capabilities that we see with these D2 diagrams with what we learned with Mermaid and Graphviz diagrams, because there is no separate software installation needed for those. And to me, it's kind of a deal breaker a little bit, but I'll be the one that puts my computer at risk and installs the software. I'm guessing most people probably won't do that. But before we get into those D2 diagrams, let's actually get our transition here into what happened last week.
Well, it looked for a while as if our heroes really had it made, didn't it? They discovered the floating mountain full of upsidasium and flew it to Washington in spite of the attempts of Boris and Natasha to stop them.
Pfui, foiled again.
That's curses foiled again, darling.
Please, Natasha, this is Kitty's show.
But things began to go wrong when Boris disguised himself as Rocky in order to steal the upsidasium. And although he failed in his nefarious attempt, he did manage to escape disguised as a famous general.
Don't worry, I shall return.
But in escaping, he had left our heroes at the mercy of his superior, Mr. Big.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid your hour has come. Mr. Big has spoken.
Who was the famous military person who said, "I shall return"? Was that Veni Vidi Vici? Was that like some Julius Caesar thing? No, it's I came, I saw, I conquered, right? Veni Vidi Vici. I don't know. I'm not a historian. I'm a psychologist. So last week was a continuation of the previous week, where we kind of went back to basics and we took a look at some of the foundational, fundamental things that it would be helpful to know if you just kind of started out using these capabilities, these authoring capabilities. And again, not to be vague, we're using two specific platforms. One is called Quarto, and that's the software that created these slides that you're looking at. Quarto is developed and supported by Posit, the company that makes the RStudio IDE, and now Positron as well. All kinds of other stuff too, lots of packages. But so when using Quarto, there are some kind of fundamental basic ways in which things to know that make it easier to write using that system. And so we organized those fundamentals in terms of ABCs, and obviously that's a bit arbitrary, but we used acronyms, so for starting with the letter A and then the letter B and then the letter C. And then last week what we did was we kind of brought up another fundamental foundational skill or thing that's helpful to know when you're using R to author. And by the way, when I say use R to author, I'm really referring to Quarto, the software that permits this. But we are also interspersing bits of analysis within our documentation, and so that's where we use R. So, so one of the foundational, fundamental kind of skills or things that it's important to know about when you're authoring using these systems are called fences. And so there's two primary types of fences. There's fences for code, which is where you do your analyses. And I guess we can just look at that first. So code fences are identified by 3 ticks. And the tick, I'm a mushroom hunter. I don't know if I've shared that before. But when I say tick, that's usually not a good thing. It's something that we try to avoid in the woods when we're looking for mushrooms. But these are good ticks. So these types of ticks are found under the ESC or escape key on a standard QWERTY keyboard. So just to the left of the numbers, those are ticks. They kind of look like an apostrophe, but they are different. So there's an apostrophe here on line 11. And these ticks, you can see they're kind of slanted, almost like an italic apostrophe, but they're called ticks. So 3 of them to open, 3 of them to close. And your opening and closing fences, your opening fence is always followed by curly brackets. This is true of code chunks. It's also true of other fences that we're going to revisit in just a second. So within the curly brackets, if you're using Quarto, you can specify what you're going to primarily specify is the language that is contained within the fences. So the fences themselves here, these code fences, define what's called a code chunk or a code block. Those are synonyms. And in this particular case, and for most of what we do using Quarto to author, our chunks are primarily R code. So this is literally code that you could put into an R script or just run it in the console, and it'll produce this map on the right here. So this is a leaflet map. And all I did was I kind of set the view of it and how zoomed in or zoomed out it is. And I just looked for fence companies around here. So I actually, this is in what's called South St. Paul or West St. Paul. I live just a little bit north here. It's on a first suburb ring out of Minneapolis here. So I could go to Midwest Fence if I actually had a fencing need. I don't have any fencing need, but it looks like they make beautiful fences. The fences that we're talking about here using R, again, the important parts to note is that there's an opening and a closing. And then there's information in curly brackets after the opening fence. Now you can have other languages. Python's very popular. You can include stylings within chunks like this, and I do that frequently. So I'll include little bits of cascading style sheets language, CSS language. So you can put raw HTML. There's all kinds of stuff you can put in the curly brackets. Yeah, you know, I mentioned Mermaid and Graphviz. Those are commands that you can also put in curly brackets. So the way that you use those diagramming languages is instead of using R in my code chunk, I'll actually put Mermaid or I'll put Graphviz. I believe those are the ways that those languages are accessed. Let's take another quick look at our script here. And so if I take a look at code chunks in RStudio, it's giving me the option of, and this is non-exhaustive. There's other languages that you can actually use in these files. But here's the Graphviz and Mermaid, and I'm just going to put one in to see what the curly bracket information is, because I don't remember. So Mermaid is just Mermaid. And then Graphviz, I thought one of these was different. Yeah, dot. So Graphviz is the one that was a little bit different. So they use a dot specification. I don't know why that is, but the people at Posit, generally speaking, have great forethought with these things, so I'm not going to second guess them. So code fences are one type of fence that we use frequently when we're authoring using Quarto or its predecessor, R Markdown. Now, what I didn't intend to spend a lot of time on that. Oh, and the one thing I guess I should mention here is I had been looking for this option for a long time, and I just found it last week. I believe I found it last week on a help page that was kind of a little hidden or a little. I don't know why, but I hadn't stumbled across it before. For the past year or so, since I've been doing these weekly sessions, one of the things there's two things that I wanted to do that I haven't found a great method to do them yet. And so one thing that I thought there were times where it would be nice to do it is to, when I echo the code that you're seeing here on the left, when I choose to present that to the viewer, typically what you see is you just see the content of the chunk itself. You don't see the ticks, you don't see the curly brackets, you don't see these commands that are chunk commands that are saying what kind of formatting and how to treat information within this chunk. But there's an option, of course. There's an option within Quarto to use, instead of just saying yes or no to echo, which is the way that I was using that echo command for years, for 8 or 9 years, however long I've been using R Markdown. Echo true means go ahead and show the code. Echo false means hide the code. And that's very useful when you're, stupid cucumber stole my teeth. It's very useful when you're authoring things like papers, because if you're communicating to another person who's familiar with the process that you're using, how you crafted this, you might want to echo the code. But for the most part, most of my papers that I'm writing look like they were written in Microsoft Word. That is, there's no code interspersed, there's just output. And so the way that you achieve that is by just saying echo false, and that gives you the output, or it performs the manipulations and analyses within the code chunk itself. It applies the R code and script, but it doesn't repeat, or it doesn't echo the actual commands themselves. Now, within Quarto, there's a third option for echo. It's not just true or false. You can also use a fenced key or a fenced value. And so this was something that I've been looking for a while, and I was so happy to find it. And I'll probably try to start using it more now that I know it's a capability. So it shows the ticks, it shows the curly bracket, it shows the chunk commands there that are identified by the hash pipe. So the hash pipe on lines 2 and 3. Now, the only thing that the echo fenced doesn't reflect is the echo fenced command itself, and they have a reason for that. They explain that in here. The YAML options will be included in the fence code. YAML options, it's referring to these, the hash pipe information. So those will be included in the fenced output, except for echo fence, because they thought that might be confusing. I'm not sure why that would be confusing, but it's great as an option. So I'm going to start using this more frequently. So as you look at these slides in the future, if you look at past ones, you'll notice that lines 1, 2, 3, and 13 are absent from all of my code presentations. I'm going to start probably trying to use that echo fenced option more frequently. Now, one thing you might have a question about is one of the reasons that it's helpful and nice to use these code chunks, and one of the reasons you might want to communicate them, for example, if you look at resources that are out there, people have created books, people have created websites, GitHub does this as well, where you can communicate and share code that other people might find helpful or useful. And they always have this clipboard option available within these chunks themselves. So you might be curious with the fenced echoing, if I copy that, does that have any consequence in terms of pasting? So we can go ahead and paste that. And it does actually copy and paste the entire code chunk, including the ticks, including the curly bracket specification, and including what posit is calling the YAML specifications. I usually just refer to these as chunk options. So it's another way to refer to those. So that wasn't even, we spent quite a bit of time last week on that. I didn't intend to really spend any time on that because when I speak of fences in terms of authoring things, the way in which I'm thinking about fences is not with the code, because the code just, for our users, the code just comes naturally. The information that is in these chunks is the exact same information, as I said, that you would write in a script. So it's code chunks are just code snippets. They're just script snippets. So there's not really much difference there in terms of what you're used to and comfortable with coming from a scripting background. Now, the difference, I think, is in how you write. So how you write semantic information, how you write prose or words, sentences, how you're communicating as you normally would communicate in something like a word processor. And so those fences are what I really wanted to spend most of the time on last week. Those fences are identified not by ticks, but again, I'm thinking of the little wood tick thing when I'm mushroom hunting here. They got to come up with a different word for tick. I don't know. Like this, I'm gonna start calling. I'm gonna try to make up my own name for that. That makes sense because I don't know. Every time I say tick, it makes me think of a wood tick. These prose fences are identified by at least 3 consecutive colons. And so the code chunks always have 3. 3 is important because if you go more than 3, there's a particular effect that happens. It'll echo things a little differently. If you go less than 3, there's consequences to that as well. Inline code is identified by 1 tick, and so 3 are important for code. I feel like I'm in a Monty Python skit right here, but 3 are really, really important. 5 is right out, so don't do 5. With prose fences, and so these are also sometimes referred to as fenced divs. And again, we talked a little bit about this last week, but that comes from the tradition of using divisions within HTML documents. And divisions are containers within which you want to have some consistent styling or formatting. So the way that these operate are very much similar. So you can think about your prose fences as just isolating content. So they're containers. So I think the best way to think about these is as containers. And now last week we didn't stack any of these. So one of the things I wanted to do on the recap was I wanted to actually stack commands within these fences. And so one of the things you can do with fences is to use callouts, and we've been using callouts. I haven't been using them as frequently now as I did when we first started using Quarto. They're kind of a neat capability, and so it's one of those shiny new toys. When you first see it, you want to use it all the time. But I think the other reason that, well, anyway, so I don't use these nearly as frequently as I used to. But the way in which you ask for them is within the curly bracket information after your opening fence. You just do a dot callout specification, and there's 5 native callouts. There's a note, there's a warning, there's an information, and a couple others. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what they are. But now that's sufficient to render this information within this right-hand column callout. Now, one of the things I did was I took a bit of CSS that I use in these weekly sessions occasionally. So if I want something to appear a little bit bigger, I have a dot bigger chunk of CSS that I can apply to content. And so what I've done here is I've actually stacked. So I've stacked the callout with a second CSS specification, and you see that this renders bigger. It's actually 1.4 times the size that it would be if I didn't render it using bigger. Let's go in and just do a quick, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this spending probably too much time on this recap, but it's probably it's probably more useful than D2 is going to be, because D2 is not going to be that useful, I don't think. So here you see what it looks like if I take bigger off, and let's put it back on. And maybe we'll just do a quick side-by-side snip here. So it's a little easier. Actually, if I'm going to do a snip, I should do the whole thing, shouldn't I? So I'm just going to move that to the side. We'll go ahead and reinstall the stacked CSS there. So there's two specifications, and you see what that looks like with the two of them. Whoa! You know, I really hate it when that happens using Windows. I've been for a long time, I've been kicking around the idea of making a transition to Linux. And for various reasons, I just haven't taken the jump. But I don't know. I'm still on Windows 10, and I'm getting all kinds of messaging that, you know, things are going to go haywire if you don't update to Windows 11. So maybe before I'm forced to do that, maybe I'll finally make the jump to Linux. I don't know. Then I'll feel like I'm fully a dev, not a psychologist anymore. Or at least that's what I'm thinking in my mind happens. Probably isn't that magical. But so fences are really, really important. And again, with these content fences, and I'm going to call them content fences instead of referring to these as fence divs. But with the content fences, you do not need to only use 3. You can use more than 3. And I believe that the opening and closing fence, in terms of the number of colons, don't even need to match. But to me, the reason that you would use more than 3 consecutive colons to define your opening and closing fences is to just navigate the sheer kind of madness that happens when you start to nest these within each other. So a different way of using bigger is I could have done a second fence, either encompassing the callout or within the callout, and that would have had similar effect. Now, if I did the bigger fence around the callout, it would render like this. If I did the bigger fence within the callout, the note information bar up here would not generate bigger, but the text within the callout would be bigger. Okay, so that's fences. Very exciting, very important, very fundamentally, foundationally important for navigating Quarto. So fences were not something that were used in R Markdown, but the Quarto team has decided to go forward with this way of structuring things. So if you want to create tabs, if you want to if you want to create columns, if you want to apply CSS styling to big chunks of information, you're going to want to do that within fences. There's an alternative system that has the same effect as fences, but it's intended to be used for smaller bits of information, and those are called bracketed spans. And so we've talked about those over the weeks as well. But yay, fences. So we're done with fences for a while. We'll probably come back to them because they are foundational, they are important. Today, again, I told you I kind of regret choosing today's topic, or tonight's topic. But we're going to go forward with it. And the reason that I regret it is because the way in which we're going to use this requires a local software installation beyond what I'm expecting anyone watching this to do. So everything that we've done over the course of the last couple of years on these weekly sessions does not require any additional software installation other than Quarto and R. Now, most people want to use an IDE, and so, you know, VS Code or RStudio or Positron, those typically are software installations as well. So R, Quarto, and an IDE. Those are the expectations. Unfortunately, I chose D2 diagrams because I I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. And I came across a cute cartoon picture of R2D2, and I'm like, well, okay, so now we got to use these diagrams because D2 makes me think R2D2. So there's a couple of links on here. So one is to a page that I think is going to be helpful in terms of the D2 installation itself. And the other one is more traditional, what we would spend our time focusing on these weekly sessions. And that's the extension that makes D2 diagrams, it makes them plausible or possible within a Quarto document. And so I haven't installed any of this yet, but you see that a prereq is that you have to have D2 installed. Now the installation, you can tell this is kind of a open source thingy. So there's all kinds of developer language, scary looking content here, which is one of the reasons that I actually put two links on here. So one of the links I put on is an installation page on the D2 Teams GitHub site that does have access to some more traditional download kind of wizards, like most of us are probably familiar with. So I'm going to take in their assets section here, and you can see that this is being actively supported. This information just was updated 2 weeks ago. That's recent. That's very recent. So I'm going to take one of these. I have no idea why there's two that look exactly the same. I feel like I'm playing one of those children's games, which is, you know, what's different in these two images. I don't see any difference here in these. What the heck? D2 VO71 Windows. Oh, there's a ARM and an AMD. Let's do that mass destruction one. I have no idea. So I don't know what I'm doing. You can watch and kind of clap along in glee if things go horribly. Cause you had a bad day. Everyone down. So let's see. So this is coming in as a zipped file, and I'm going to go to my Windows Explorer if I can. I'm going to go to my Windows Explorer and go to my downloads file, and we'll see if we can extract this. Okay. So maybe I don't want AMD. We'll try the ARM. This has got to be just brutal to watch, I imagine. He's like, this guy, what is he doing? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's downloading weird stuff onto his computer. I don't know why it doesn't want me. Okay, so we're gonna try the. We'll try the kind of the more straightforward, the more developer-y kind of way, I guess, which is how they recommended doing this anyway. I thought I stumbled across something that was going to be helpful there with that direct download, but what they want you to do instead is they want you to open a command prompt. Now we'll see how many people watching this know what a command prompt is. So when I first learned computers, believe it or not, I had to use all these command prompt commands. This environment, we referred to it as MS-DOS. That was the operating system. There's a language here, I guess, that we're using. I think it's BASIC. I used to write computer programs as a kid. I used to make birthday cards and stuff using a shell like this. So I'm a little familiar with it. But I'm going to go down to the root directory, and then I'm going to try these weird looking commands. I don't know. I have no idea what this actually means. Let's go ahead and copy it. Probably should read, but that's no fun, right? So if this doesn't work, we may have to read. And that's kind of weird. usually right-clicking in there makes it possible. It looks like I'm not able to actually paste in there what I want to paste in there. So maybe I have a weird cursor thing going on here. It's crying out loud. There's no way this is gonna work, but we'll try it. FSSL HTTPS d2lang.com/horrible pirated something or other that's gonna crash my system from some foreign entity. Pipe. It's got a pipe in it. That's scary. SHS. This does not seem like I should be doing this. It doesn't like that. Let's try this. I don't know what this does either. I mean, for someone that purports to have a weekly show that is kind of, showing people how to do stuff, I'm failing miserably at that tonight. I'm definitely in over my head with this D2 stuff. All right, so let's try again. Let's try again to find what I thought was going to be helpful, which is that direct download link. And I'm not sure why I'm not able to extract that. Let's put it into AI. Let's see what AI says. And so I'm going to go, Grok is the one that I've been using most frequently, actually. The one thing I don't like about Grok is when you hit hard return, it just submits your question. And like, I want to space out my content a little more. Like, I almost have to craft it in a notepad file or something. All right, what's going on? Download the file. Yeah, we already did that. But right click. That's what I tried. Extract all. And we don't even know. See, I'm not getting an extract option. Maybe if I put it, maybe if I zip it first, that doesn't make any sense. Now, one thing I did look up that I think might be important is they wanted this to be located, I wanted it to be loaded on the root. What the heck just happened? I have no idea if it, oh, there it is. I'm supposed to get an executable file. And I do not see how that's actually going to work. Once extracted, yeah, there's nothing to extract. Looks like it's going to take us to the same page. Bug fixes. Now this has got to be user error. I can't believe this is. I can't believe this is them. This has got to be me. I'm downloading just random stuff. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to do this tonight. Let's give it another try here on AI. but I think I'm in the right spot. I don't know if I'm hitting the wrong thing or what. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. These files do have content in them. I mean, they, 20 megabytes there. Just not sure if I have an extractor here. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe I don't have WinZip or some zip capability. I know that I have unzipped files. Zip Recruiter. What the heck is that? I need Zip Recruiter. Let's go back to Grok here. Let's see what Grok says. Windows has native support for tar.gz files. I wonder if it's a Windows issue. I guess that might be it. 'Cause I definitely can't. There's nothing to extract. All right, let's give this one more try. Let's try the prompts or the command line installation again. Maybe there's a different one here. I'm starting to think that maybe it's a operating system issue. By the way, so the other thing we can talk about here is what it looks like. The language itself, we're going to have to learn the language in order to play with this a little bit. But there's code that we can copy, and it does create what are some pretty neat looking diagrams. So the most convenient way is to just run as an executable file. We tried that. I guess we can try it again. Maybe it has something to do with where I'm trying to put it. But again, the command prompt to me is even operating a little different here. So maybe I'll try it. I'll just try it here. And again, there's no copy available. What is going on? It didn't like curl before, and so I'm not sure. To me, that's probably an operating system thing. I'm a little concerned that I'm not gonna. I'm a pretty good typer, but it's spaces sometimes get missed. SH. All right, let's see if we can copy that. Crying out loud, nothing wants to copy. So we're going to put that into Grok again here. So I got to tell it when I try to use the command line installation, and then let's see, it should copy here, right? Oh, I guess that's not what I wanted. What I wanted was this. So I can paste it into Grok, but I can't paste it into I get the following message. So I can't paste into my command prompt shell, but I can paste into Grok. because you're running the command in a Windows command prompt, which doesn't natively support. Oh, okay. So it's making fun of me for my previous question. As you learned nothing from your previous question, I will give you an alternative. Okay, why it failed, solutions. Yeah, this one doesn't work. Hey, progress though. The little bit of cucumber that was on my teeth, it just worked its way loose. So tonight's not a complete loss. Um, it's still wanting me to right click, which I can't right click. Unix-like environment. Git bash. No, I don't. I'm not sure I want to mess with Git because I have my system all set up. Package manager. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to figure this out. So sorry, tonight we're not. I don't think we're gonna get D2 working tonight. There's 10 minutes left, and I haven't figured out how to get it on my machine. So I mean, I guess informative in the sense that I was right that it's gonna be kind of messy doing this other software installation. But I think what I'll do in the interceding week is I will figure it out. I'll get it installed. I'll try to do it on a different computer so I can still walk through on this one how it actually works. But we'll try. I'll, depending on how wonky it is, we'll either try this again next week, or next week maybe next week we'll do something different. Maybe I'll do 2 different topics. We'll cover this, and then maybe we'll do something extended beyond that as well. I think what we can probably do is show some of those Mermaid capabilities and contrast it. So again, let's just so we get a diagram in here. Let's go ahead and put in a Mermaid graph. And again, these are pretty cool. So I thought they were pretty neat. And we should be able to just grab some code here. And it's using diagram R. We don't want that. We actually want to use Mermaid. There are some examples on the Quarto site in terms of capabilities. There's one. And so, again, we've played with this before, but what this should do, actually, it's going to probably overplot on the bottom of the last page here. So let's just create a new slide at the very end of our deck here. And again, that double £sign denotes a new, either a single or double denotes a new slide within these reveal.js slides. And we saw this too with Mermaid. So we saw that we were actually getting some kind of funny things going on with the images themselves. And so you see the information kind of extending beyond the containers there. Now, one thing, this probably won't work, but we can try. We talked about using fences quite a bit. Good thing I spent so much time on fences since we couldn't do D2 diagrams. But I'm curious to see if this has any effect. Theoretically, it's going to print everything at. Well, actually, I have another command here with a capital B that's twice the size. It might not work with these diagrams. And I just saw a little preview there. It looks to me like it probably didn't have any effect. So we'd have to play it, and we did. Although look at that. It did have some effect on where those words were showing up. It's just weird. Okay, so weird night. Sorry, it's gonna thunderstorm here as well. Maybe that has something to do with it. But anyway, so thanks for putting up with my computer issues here and my user error on trying to get D2 natively installed. And so again, what I'll do in the interceding week here is I'll figure that out on a different computer so I can walk everyone through next week how to get that installation. Once the installation's in, we'll probably take a look and see how that looks within Quarto documents, and in particular how maybe those are similar or dissimilar to the Viz graph as well as the mermaid diagrams. Okay, thanks everybody. See you next week.